morning, fellow constitutionalists, and welcome to the Free-for-All-Friday edition of the Dan Clements Show, a Christian political talk show. I'm your host, Dan Clements, your constitutional warrior fighting for your right just to be an American. It is April 20th, the year of the Lord 2018. Remember, we're a hyphen-free, PC-free zone. God is still in control and He does love you. And I'm broadcasting live from the Hemlock Studios here in the beautiful, chilly Central Susquehanna Valley in the great Keystone State. And folks, I woke up today, it was 32 degrees out this morning with a dusting of snow on the vehicles when I went to my water therapy. This winter's been way too long. Now, if you've been watching this live, I had to restart this. I do apologize. I did not have my mic turned on the open broadcast studio. I do apologize for that. I've been trying to figure out, and I'm getting close to it, of having my mic on at the same time on the OBS as I'm doing other things without getting an echo back into it. So I'm slowly zeroing in on that, and I have it almost figured out. So I do apologize for that lapse in turning on the microphone on the OBS, the Open Broadcast Studio. And this is where an extra set of hands would help me out. This is something I'm trying to work towards now. I'm trying to build up my subscribers to the point to where I have the views and the watch minutes where I can start selling advertising to some affiliates I have. Instead of being affiliate advertisers, they would be actual paying advertisers on the show. And I do appreciate your patience with me on this journey that I'm on here, that we're hopefully everything is working now and it's going well. Let's see here. I'm still getting a good stream up there. Okay. Today's show I entitled, "Are the Dominoes Starting to Fall for the Obama Administration and Social Media?" And you're probably thinking, why am I talking about the Obama administration? They're no longer in power. They're out of office. And you know why I'm talking about social media, but the Obama administration might be scratching your head. Well, there was a lot of skullduggery going on during the Obama administration. There were more than a handful, or right around a handful, of incidences during the Obama administration which rose to the level of impeachable offenses. Now, the Obama sycophants and the lamestream media that likes to provide cover for him, as Mark Levin would call them, the Praetorian Guard, to try to guard his reputation from being sullied from any angle, will deny this. You'll be called a conspiracy theorist by those on social media. I have relatives that will live and die by Obama and don't want to hear anything bad about him, whether you think it's the truth or not. And even if you can prove it, which a lot of these impeachable offenses can be proven. I mean, Fast and Furious is one of them. That absolutely can be proven. People died because of that operation under Eric Holder, the Attorney General. And it had to have the go-ahead by Barack Obama. It just had to. And if it didn't, then Barack Obama was derelict in his duty, which is also an impeachable offense. So either way you go, it was an impeachable offense. Benghazi. Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State at the time. 4 men died during that operation that didn't have to die. I think she was either asleep at the wheel or derelict in her duty. But the ultimate responsibility falls back to Barack Obama. He could have overrode her and told our armed forces to go in and rescue those at our U.S. consulate annex in Benghazi. Didn't happen. You have Hillary Clinton with the email scandal while she was at the State Department, while she was Secretary of State, and while she was also Secretary of State, which I think was a huge conflict of interest. You have the Clinton Foundation that was taking money pay to play from foreign entities. You have the Uranium One, another, I believe, an impeachable offense with giving 20% of the uranium stock, our uranium stock, to Russia. And it never ends. And the final one was the illegal surveillance of a political candidate during a campaign. And we're talking about then candidate Trump, then President Obama, And then President Obama's administration or the departments underneath him, like the NSA, the FBI, whoever was doing the surveillance, had to be doing it at his behest. And so, especially with the FBI, we have McCabe, the Inspector General of the FBI, has forwarded his findings for consideration to the U.S. Attorney for criminal charges. It's pretty serious. Inspector Generals don't normally forward these things unless there's something there. That's pretty serious with McCabe. And McCabe was under, the Obama administration. He's a holdover from the Obama administration. We have Congress asking for federal investigations into Comey and Clinton and Lynch, McCabe, Stortz, and Page. All of them were against President Trump, including Comey. Comey's written a book. Comey's been on the news. Comey has shown, I've watched his interviews. I've watched some things like what Ben Shapiro thought about that and about some other folks I respect, what they thought about that interview, and it's pretty much in line with what I thought. I think Comey pretty much shot himself in the foot with that interview and writing his book. These guys can't help themselves. They cannot help themselves. If they think it'll make President Trump look bad, they're going to go ahead and do it, no matter how bad it actually looks for them. I have a video here of Attorney Alan Dershowitz, talking about the FBI raid on Attorney Michael Cohen's office and how they're pouring over his records, and a lot of those records could have privileged information that they're not allowed to see, and a lot of this information could be leaked to the Mueller investigation. I think this is a serious breach on the FBI. I think this is, honestly, I think this is a retaliation for the fire of McCabe, for making Comey, fire Comey, and making both of them look bad, for the outing of Stortz and Page, who were totally against Trump, totally in the bag for Hillary Clinton. And I can't help but think that. I don't have proof that this is in retaliation, but folks, it's as Leroy Jethro Gibbs on NCIS believes, I don't believe in coincidences. And I don't think this, people say, oh, just a coincidence. I don't believe in them. I don't trust the FBI now. If I ever did. I think at one time I probably did, but I don't trust them today. They're too political. They got too involved with politics, especially under the Obama administration. And I have to take it all the way back to the Clinton administration, where Bill and Hillary had those files that they shouldn't have had from the FBI at the White House. Some of the FBI could have stood up to them and said, no, you're not allowed to have these. But they didn't. And so, I think the FBI has a long sordid affair with the Democrats and liberals in general. And I think our nation's investigative agency, the FBI, has become tainted and become corrupt because of that. Looking down through here, I'm going to talk a little bit more about some more news here, where about Syria. That was in the news. I did a video about Syria and the gassing in Syria. It's a real whodunit. And I have two different sources here. I have one, it's from ZeroHedge.com with war reporter Robert Fisk, talking about, there was no one was gassed there. And I also have One American News Network. They had a reporter on the ground, and I got a video clip of that. And we're going to play that also here on the show. That it was staged. It had to be staged. I mean, all the evidence is pointing to it being staged. And it's not. The funny thing is, everybody's saying Assad's not letting anybody in there. It's not Assad that's not letting them in there. It's these rebels that are still in the area that's not allowing people to get in there, or making it very hard for people to get in there, because there's been a couple Americans, including this reporter from One American News Network. So, it just didn't make any sense. It wasn't logical, no common sense to it. If Assad had beaten the rebels, then there was no need for him to use gas against his people. And if he had used real gas, and I want to point something out in the video when we get to it. It's funny. This, I don't know if anybody else has seen this. Probably have. I hope they have. But I don't know if anybody else noticed this. But what this guy says a missile isn't a missile. I'll tell you exactly what it is, because I've used them before. And then, talking about the dominoes starting to fall, we have this civil suit against Google brought on by their engineer. And let me get over to that. Just want to get the names. Their senior engineer, Alan Altman, wanted to sabotage Trump's Android phone and ban his Gmail account. And we're talking about James Damore's class action lawsuit is bringing this stuff out. And it's like, we heard rumors of this, but now through this class action lawsuit, we're getting a lot of this information's coming out. Now, this has been a bad week for the big three in social media. Google, who owns YouTube, I lump those two together, but Google's search engine, which I haven't used for months, or very rarely. I might use it for, I like Google. I do like Google Maps, so I do go in there and use that, of Google. But as far as my day-to-day searches, I use a search engine called DuckDuckGo, and it's a lot better. And it is a competitor of Google. And I think the more that comes out with government surveillance of the election, the more we find out, and I think we're going to find out more and more and more what the NSA was doing and other surveillance agencies under Obama with Americans' personal information, that they're being surveilled without a warrant, no probable cause, just because the government can do and wanted to. And I think people are getting tired of that. I think people are using computers now on a daily basis like I do, and other YouTubers and folks on Twitter. They're getting fed up with Twitter and YouTube and Facebook. I was watching the hearings this past week. Diamond and Silk on Facebook. I was watching Laura Ingraham on a YouTube video of her show, and she interviewed Diamond and Silk. And the one thing that I thought was kind of strange throughout that whole thing, and this is where people are getting fed up with this, on Facebook, not unlike MySpace, we were building individual communities. Now, what I put out on my show page on Facebook is only viewed by those who are signed up or follow my page. It's not shared with everybody on Facebook. And that's the way Facebook made it sound like that's what's happening. And that's absolutely not what is happening. It was never designed to be that way. And they were talking about how Diamond and Silk were dangerous for their community or for the community. But the problem with that statement is Diamond and Silk are the community. Their followers make up their community. What they put out on Facebook only goes to those who want to see it. Same way with Twitter, same way with YouTube. Now YouTube is a little bit different because you don't have to be part of my subscriber to actually see my videos. You can go in, do searches, and actually see my videos that way. All right, and actually on Facebook you can do the same thing. But a lot of times people have things blocked where you can't see their timeline, and that's fine. So the community on YouTube is a little bit different, but it's still a community. Only those people who are subscribed to me and hit the notification button on YouTube see my videos, or see notifications to see my videos. That's my community. And when Facebook, especially this, and it was a message back to Diamond and Silk from Facebook, it was like, dangerous to your community, or dangerous to the community. Well, as far as I'm concerned, and I'll just deal with Facebook, whoever follows me is part of my community. They're part of my community. Now, I may see things that, I got a bunch of friends, and I see, I follow a bunch of people, and I see things come on my timeline, and the only way my actual followers, all of my followers, see that on my timeline is if I share it. That's the only time they see it. I follow a lot of people, and I see what what they want me to see, what they want to share, and that's fine. I don't want to see everything that's on their timeline because I'm not actually part of their community. But it struck me as funny that Facebook would send that back saying you're dangerous to the community. The community they're talking about is Diamond and Silk's community, period. That's how Facebook works. If you didn't know that, then something's wrong with you. Or you need to do a little more research and wake up a little bit. You really do. I'm telling you, folks, that's where it's at. So we have a lot of things going on the show today. There is a story I'm gonna save to last, talking about the irrational Christophobes attack on Chick-fil-A. And it's a story out of New York where Chick-fil-A's opened some stores, and we'll get into that. I do. I think it's laughable how some of these people actually think out there, especially the progressives, the humanist progressives in this country. Because remember, humanists, government is God. There is no God before government. And they think, I was watching a free speech show last night on YouTube, live stream with David Rubin, and the Rubin Report, and he had this professor on there. He was an objectionist. He follows Ayn Rand, and it was funny. I don't want to get too far off track here. I want to get into the rest of the show. I just want to finish this thought up. It's funny how objectionists, that they look at things objectively, how they can't look at the Bible objectively and come away with what the Bible, what God, Jesus Christ, and God's Word, how God wants them to understand His Word and Him and everything that goes along with it. It cracks me up that these objectionists cannot be objective about the Bible. I'm not saying all of them. I don't want to whitewash all of them. But this particular one, some of the comments he made about Christ and some other stuff, I was laughing while I was watching that, because you absolutely can find objective truth and be objective about the Scriptures and know exactly what the Scriptures have to say. Too many people in academia and the progressive humanist movement out there, they want people to believe that, well, that's just your interpretation, or the Bible can be interpreted so many different ways. And it absolutely cannot. There's only one true interpretation to any passage in the Bible. And they just don't want to take the time to sit down and study it like they would any other book and use proper hermeneutics. And that's, I know that hermeneutics is a big word, but remember in English class, and when you read something, it's who, what, when, where, why, and sometimes how. You apply those rules, those simple hermeneutical rules, to the Bible. Keep everything in context. Context king in the Bible. And when it talks about something, let's say just baptism, when it says something about baptism in this book, and one of the apostles or something is a different apostle is saying something about baptism in another book, it doesn't contradict each other. What's true here is true here. And that's how you have to look at it. And too many people take things way out of context when it comes to the Bible. All right, enough said there, folks. All right, I started a new little thing here. I'm going to try this today. I finally got, I don't use Microsoft products. I use OpenOffice. And I use OpenOffice Impress. That's the same thing as PowerPoint, but it's OpenOffice. And I finally got it to work on my OBS, but I had to put a second monitor up to my OBS and put that up on the monitor. But it makes it a lot easier for me when I'm doing the daily Bible reading and also a quote meal. Today's daily Bible reading comes from Romans chapter 8, verses 31 through 34. What then shall we say to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? He who did not spare his own son, but delivered him up for us all, how shall he not with him also freely give us all things? Who shall bring a charge against God's elect? It is God who justifies. Who is he who condemns? It is Christ who died and furthermore is also risen, who is even at the right hand of God, who also makes intercession for us. Well, one of the reasons why I chose this today, it was in my email, my daily Bible reading in my email, but sometimes I skip over some, I like different Bible verses and that. But with everything that's going on today, and my one story about Christophobia, I think this is a really good verse. Who can bring a charge against God's elect? It is God who justifies. Who is he who condemns? It is Christ who died and furthermore is also risen, who is even at the right hand of God, who also makes intercession for us. People can rage all they want about Christ, Christianity, Christian living, Christian morals, whatever. And they can try to condemn us, but guess what? They can't bring a charge against us because God has justified us through his word. All right, today's quote meal. Let me get back over here. Today's quote meal comes from Philip Brooks. And I'm working on this, folks. I really am working on this. It may be hard to see the black on that picture, but I'll read it for you anyway. Do not pray for easy lives. Pray to be stronger men. Do not pray for tasks equal to your powers. Pray for powers equal to your tasks. Then the doing of your work shall be no miracle, but you yourself shall be a miracle. Every day you shall wonder at yourself, at the riches of life which has come to you by the grace of God. Yeah, a lot of times we ask God to make things easier for us instead of giving us the strength to conquer those things that are ahead of us, that have befalling us. All right, let's see here. Today's short Bible lesson comes from Al Shannon over at biblicalproofwordpress.com, and is How Beautiful Heaven Will Be. And he goes through and he talks about, he contrasts heaven and hell as laid out in the scriptures now, but he, as Al Shannon is wont to do, he looks at things in a little bit different way than most people would actually look at the Bible and look at heaven and the scriptures that are talked about there. So it's like I said, I like what he does there. I like the things that he does with that. Okay, let me get on to the videos here. Now, this first video I'm going to share with you is Alan Dershowitz on the FBI raid on Michael Cohen's office, and this is over at foxnews.com.
Breaking news, more breaking news. President Trump calling Michael Cohen on the phone to, quote, check in as their lawyers went to court over seized documents earlier today, according to the New York Times. Here now to react is Alan Dershowitz, Harvard law professor. What an extraordinary time we live in, Professor. And I'm thinking of all the information that prosecutors and the FBI now have, because Mr. Cohen has worked with Mr. Trump for decades. All of the business documents, all of the bills, all of the notes and information that those investigators now have. Who is going through that information right now? And is there any way to guarantee that it won't be leaked to Mr. Mueller, who shouldn't have access to all of that?
Well, there's a 100% certainty it will be leaked. Already today, we've seen some leaking about information regarding a Republican fundraiser and his affair with some playmate. Leaking is inevitable. When the director of the FBI, Comey, leaks information and launders it through a Columbia law professor, and then writes a book in which he leaks information that he learned in confidence from the president, we have to understand leaking is part of the way the Justice Department operates and has always operated.
But if this information, forgive me, if this information has leaked, doesn't that pretty much destroy the lawyer-client privilege in the United States? And isn't Mr. Mueller responsible for that?
It's already been destroyed, even if it doesn't leak. As soon as an FBI agent reads material that's lawyer-client privilege, the Sixth Amendment has been violated and the Fourth Amendment has been violated. That's why I'm against taint teams. I'm in favor of having a judge appointed to go through every communication and to make sure that not a single communication gets to any prosecutor or FBI agent that is even arguably privileged or covered by either the Fourth or the Sixth Amendment. That's not the way it's operating today. Today we have FBI agents and assistant U.S. attorneys as the taint team. They're going to read all the material. Imagine if they allowed people to read classified material. They'd never do that. And this is as important under the Constitution as any classified material.
Absolutely.
But they're doing it in an extremely sloppy way, in a way that's not particularly protective.
Well, it's important for our rights. I mean, it is one of the cornerstones of the rule of law in the United States. And you have justifiably criticized the ACLU. I believe you used to be on the board of the ACLU. Instead of defending the rights of innocent people, in this case, of people whose rights have been violated, they're defending the actions of Mr. Mueller.
It's unbelievable that the American Civil Liberties Union has lost its way. There used to be at least one organization that would always stand up for the rights of innocent clients. Remember that what's done to clients can be done to patients and doctor relationship, to penitents and priest-penitent relationship, to spouse who have spousal privileges. And the ACLU is now on the forefront of saying, it's okay, that's okay, as long as you're going to get Donald Trump, we don't care about civil liberties. Trumping everything is getting Trump, and that's the ACLU. And the ACLU has received my last contribution. I was a proud member of the national board. I sat on the local Massachusetts Civil Liberties Union, went to meetings there. But today, the Civil Liberties Union has become an enemy of civil liberties and a supporter of gotcha legal politics.
Mr. Dershowitz, we've got to go, but I got to ask just one final question. You've been at the White House a couple of times this week. A lot of people are wondering if you're going to end up on the president's legal team. What do you say to that?
No, I went there to advise his staff people who are working on the Middle East issues. I spent many, many hours with the staffers in the Middle East, and then the president very nicely invited me to a short dinner, about an hour and a quarter, an hour and a half. And I'm not going to be his lawyer. I want to remain independent, be able to explain the law to people, to defend civil liberties. Look, just a few of us now are there to defend civil liberties. And the ACLU can't be counted on, and others can't be counted on. So I think my role has become ever more important in trying to defend in an apolitical way everybody's civil liberties.
Alan Dershowitz, great to see you, Alan. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it.
Now that was Alan Dershowitz. I had the volume cranked up to too high. Sorry, folks. That was Alan Dershowitz. I'll get this straight here, talking about on Fox Business there, talking about the FBI seizing Michael Cohen's personal records. What should have happened, and what doesn't seem to have happened, was they should have got a warrant for this. And a special master, and that can be normally judges. Judges don't normally get into this where they look at all this stuff. Usually what the judge does, and the only reason why I know this is because I watched this, it's a Prime, Amazon Prime series called Bosch, and they're just going through this. This latest season, there was a lawyer that was killed, and during the investigation, they need to check out some of the stuff, look in the records of the lawyer to see if maybe they can find some clues. But before they could do that, a judge appointed another lawyer as a special master, okay? And this person, male or female, goes through the records and gives to the police those things that are not privileged information. And from all intents and purposes, I've been trying to find out if they've done this. I haven't read anywhere where a judge has appointed a special master to look over to protect attorney-client's privilege in this seizing of Michael Cohen's office. Now they say the reason why they seized his stuff is because of an ongoing investigation that didn't have anything to do with Donald Trump. Again, I don't believe in coincidences. I really don't. And so, folks, this is bad. This is bad. This makes the FBI look real bad here, and to me it looks like a gotcha move, or a retaliatory move on the FBI. President Trump has not been easy on them. Fired Comey, McCabe was fired by Jeff Sessions, and a couple days before his full retirement. And now, again, and I'll get over to this article here. This is out of the Chicago Tribune. Inspector General referred findings on McCabe to U.S. Attorney for consideration of criminal charges. This is by Karan Demirjian and Matt Zaposky. The Justice Department Inspector General referred its findings that former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe repeatedly misled investigators who were examining a media disclosure to the top federal prosecutor in the District of Columbia to determine whether McCabe should be charged with a crime, according to people familiar with the matter. The referral to the D.C. U.S. Attorney Office occurred some time ago after the Inspector General concluded McCabe had lied to investigators or his own boss, then FBI Director James Comey, on 4 occasions, 3 of them under oath. It was not immediately clear how the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office responded to the referral or whether prosecutors there are conducting their own investigation or believe criminal charges are appropriate. A referral to federal prosecutors does not necessarily mean McCabe will be charged with a crime. The Justice Department, the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office, and a spokeswoman for McCabe declined to comment Thursday. And last week, Inspector General Michael Horowitz sent to Congress a report blasting McCabe. It said he inappropriately authorized the disclosure of sensitive information to the media and then lied repeatedly to investigators examining the matter the report, which quickly became public, though it was not released by the Inspector General, laid out in stunning detail allegations McCabe had deceived investigators about his role in approving the disclosure, even as he lashed out at others in the FBI for leaks. McCabe, though, disputes many of the report's findings and has said he never meant to mislead anyone. Lying to federal investigators is a crime punishable by up to 5 years in prison, and some legal analysts speculated in the wake of the report that the Inspector General seemed to be laying out a case for accusing McCabe of such conduct. The report alleged that one of McCabe's lies was done knowingly and intentionally, which is a key aspect of the federal crime. Attorney General Jeff Sessions fired McCabe from the FBI last month, just 26 hours before McCabe could retire, denying McCabe some of his retirement benefits and reigniting the political firestorm that has long surrounded the former FBI official. President Trump has repeatedly and publicly attacked McCabe and alleged his termination was politically motivated. Well, folks, whether it was politically motivated or not is immaterial. It's immaterial because McCabe did wrong. Whether the president wanted him out of there or not, or whether somebody else wanted him out there for political reasons, is beside the point. The Inspector General found sufficient cause to turn this over to the D.C. U.S. Attorney for possible consideration for criminal charges, which can, if convicted, he can get minimum 5 years in prison. And folks, I hate to say this, but I think some heads are going to have to start rolling here. If people at the highest levels of our government, whether elected or bureaucratical, whether they're elected official or part of the bureaucracy, if they've done wrong, whether intentionally or not, there's a lot of people out here who drive drunk and kill somebody. Now, in my opinion, they intentionally drove drunk. Okay, even though the reasoning is impaired by alcohol, stuff like that, they could have took steps before they started drinking to make sure they didn't drive drunk. Having said that, I don't think anybody ever drives drunk with the intentions of killing somebody, so it was unintentional. But still, life was lost and a law was broken. Vehicular manslaughter at the minimum. And I use this example, whether it was intentional or not, he lied. And more times than not, and it's been my experience in my life, and I try not to lie at all. I'm only human. I do fall down. I fall short of the glory of God sometimes, and do lie. It's more in the past than it is now. But all my lies were intentional, folks. Either deceive somebody or soften a punishment for me. One of the two. And to me, lies are intentional. Even little white lies, we intend to say them. If we didn't intend to say them, we wouldn't have said them. We would not have said them at all. So it just amazes me. It amazes me how many of these people in high positions in our government, whether in the bureaucracy or elected officials, who get away literally with murder sometimes. And these people need to be held accountable. This has to start now. The progressives are going to cry and bemoan all this is just a political theater. Okay, it may be political theater. So what? If the guy or the girl broke the law, why shouldn't they be prosecuted? And let me tell you something here. McCabe is high enough in the FBI, he probably knows stuff that some other people don't want to get out. And if it comes to criminal charges, guess what? I'm hoping it doesn't come to this, but there might be a plea deal. He might plead out saying, hey, I got some information about so-and-so that's done way worse than I have. Let's make a deal. Monty, what's behind door number 3? Let's make a deal. It goes on all the time. I mean, we're just going to have to wait to see what happens here. But I think if charges are brought against by the D.C. U.S. Attorney against McCabe and they're going to take him to court, you're going to see a lot of people sweating bullets on Capitol Hill and elsewhere. Because like I said, McCabe was high up, deputy director of the FBI. You don't think Comey knows secrets? You don't think McCabe knows secrets? I'm just speculating here, folks, but I don't think my speculation is too far off. I really, really don't. All right. Along with this story, this is a CNS News story. By the way, that last one was, I did say it was Chicago Tribune. Congressman requests federal investigation of Comey, Clinton, Lynch, McCabe, Stork, and I think that's how you pronounce his name, and Page. This is by Susan Jones, posted yesterday. 11 House Republicans on Wednesday sent a letter to Attorney General Jeff Sessions, FBI Director Christopher Wray, and U.S. Attorney John Huber, formally asking them to investigate 3 members of the Obama administration: former FBI Director James Comey, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, former Attorney General Loretta Lynch, and FBI agents Peter Stork and Lisa Page, all for potential violations of federal statutes. We write to refer the following individuals for investigation of potential violations of federal statutes, the letter says. In doing so, we are especially mindful of the dissimilar degrees of zealousness that has marked the investigations into former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and the presidential campaign of Donald Trump, respectively. Because we believe that those in position of high authority should be treated the same as every other American, we want to be sure that the potential violations of law outlined below are vetted appropriately. The 11 Republicans say Comey's decision not to seek charges against Clinton's mishandling of classified emails suggests improper investigative conduct potentially motivated by a political agenda. Let me stop the reading there. Everybody, I mean everybody except me and Donald Trump, I know there's a few more than that, but I did predict just by the size of the rallies of Donald Trump over the size of the rallies that Hillary Clinton had that Donald Trump would win. But all the polls, all the talking heads in the lamestream media, all the political pundits, all the politicos in Washington, D.C. had Hillary Clinton winning. And James Comey did not want to get on her bad side. He thought she was going to win too. And guess what? I bet you it was even to his surprise and chagrin that Donald Trump won the Electoral College and became President of the United States. Just saying, folks. I read on. They also said Comey appears to have leaked classified information when he leaked memos detailing his conversation with President Trump. Republicans refer to Hillary Clinton for disguising payments to Fusion GPS on mandatory disclosures to the Federal Election Commission. They want Loretta Lynch investigated for her decision to threaten with reprisal former FBI informant who tried to come forward in 2016 with insight into the Uranium One deal. They want former FBI Director, Deputy Director Andrew McCabe investigated for lying and leaking to the press, as outlined in a recent report from the Justice Department Inspector General. Republicans want FBI agent Stewart and Page investigated for their interference in the investigation into Hillary Clinton's use of a personal email server. And finally, the letters asked Sessions, Wray, and Huber to investigate all DOJ and FBI personnel responsible for signing the Carter-Page warrant application that contained unverified and or false information. Appearing on Fox Wednesday night, Representative DeSantis said this is all about equal application of law. Comey, he's out on his book tour acting like his values trump all, but yet he testified in front of Congress that he didn't exonerate Hillary until after the interview with Clinton, when we know evidence has come out that exonerated her 2 months before with the memo. Then you look at somebody like Andrew McCabe. He rushed in to prosecute Michael Flynn. They went in, they interviewed Flynn and prosecuted him for false statements. McCabe lied to the FBI. It is documented now multiple times. Is there a different set of rules for McCabe? DeSanto asked. Appearing with DeSanto on Hannity, Representative Matt Goetz, Florida, Republican Florida, said if lies were music, Jim Comey would be Beethoven, but when you lie to Congress, it's a crime. When you leak information that's classified, it's a crime. When you allow your personal politics to dictate the outcome of an investigation before even conducting an investigation in earnest, that could be obstruction of justice. And it's not could be, that is obstruction of justice, folks. And so in Congress, we don't want just to sit around and hope that Jeff Sessions and others would seriously look into these matters. We want to specifically detail the violations of law and then demand action from our Attorney General, because we cannot allow this to stand, Goetz said. I know, Gaetz, Gaetz. The letter referring members of the Obama administration for prosecution was signed by DeSantis, Gaetz, as well as Representatives Andy Biggs of Arizona, Dave Bratt of Virginia, Jeff Duncan of South Carolina, Paul Gozer of Arizona, Andy Harris, Maryland, Jody Heiss of Georgia, Todd Rakita of Indiana, Claudia Tini of New York, and Ted Yoho of Florida. So we have here Congress asking, and quite honestly, and this sort of bothers me a little bit, but quite honestly, I think Congress was too kind in that. Congress can demand, not just ask, can demand that these investigatory agencies investigate this, because they are Congress. They are our representatives. And even if they feel that a law was broken and they were lied to, they can refer that over to and say, look, this needs to be investigated. They're not saying, oh, you got to convict them, but this needs to be earnestly investigated. Now, how many times did we hear during the Obama administration by Nancy Pelosi and others that she wanted things investigated with no proof of wrongdoing to begin with, no, looks of impropriety, nothing, no probable cause for the investigation, but she still wanted the investigation because we got to see if there's any wrongdoing. In order for the police to even investigate something, there has to be some probable cause or some probable knowledge of a crime that was committed, and then through the investigation they prove that and they find out who committed the crime. That's how things work. So I think Congress, I know they're being respectful here, and they're just requesting the federal investigation, but I think they can. I think if they went, if something didn't happen, and someone out there can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they can actually go to the floor and pass a resolution, a law, mind you, that would force the investigation of Comey, Clinton, Lynch, McCabe, Stewart, and Page. I honestly believe that. Now maybe I'm way off base here, but I honestly believe they have the power in Congress to force this. To actually pass a law, through House, through the Senate, and have President Trump sign it that forces this investigation. And it needs to be, especially with Clinton. Especially with Clinton. The Clintons have gotten away with with murder. Of everything that we know, all the suppositions, the accusations, proof that people are bringing forward, especially with the Clinton Foundation. I mean, talk about a money laundering scheme there. Talk about how the Clinton campaign directed the DNC, how they're hiding payments on they're reporting to the Federal Election Commission, to GPS Fusion, or Fusion GPS, however you want to call it, for that dossier. Folks, the Clintons are as crooked as the day is long. When they bury both of those two, they're going to have to screw them into the ground. They won't be able to lay them in a regular rectangular hole. They're going to have to screw them into the ground to get them buried. That's how crooked they are. And I know, like I said, I got some relatives that are just, they hear me talk like this, and they just want to block me on every social media that we're friends with, and they want me to just go away. But you can't deny the appearance of wrongdoing. That's something, I think it goes well beyond appearance, especially with the emails. I think the FBI has proof with Anthony Weiner's laptop, with the classified emails that were on his laptop that he got off of his ex-wife Ahmadin's laptop, which she got from the email server, the illegal email server of Hillary Clinton. I mean, they have proof that there was classified emails on that server, and nothing's been done yet. Nothing. And it's just, the American people are getting fed up with this. Now, I believe that the American people, for the most part, are good at heart, and they don't want somebody railroaded. But you know what? If it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, sounds like a duck, and smells like a duck, pretty good assumption that is a duck. And that's exactly what we're looking at with Clinton. And I believe that's what we're looking at with the rest of them too. Lynch, McCabe, Storch, Page, Comey. The looks of impropriety are just astounding. Just astounding. And yet, everybody's mum on investigations, especially when it comes to Clintons. Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation, which brings her husband back into the fray. And you know what? And she was hoping, I know, her and Bill were hoping beyond hope that she would win the election because all this stuff would go away. Because she would literally have the power to make this stuff go away. She would. And I think this more than anything else has the Clintons and their protectors in the mainstream media and also in the flyover country, in America, all the sycophants that support her. This is what truly has them worried because this is not going away. And I want it to be a fair process, but I want it to be a thorough process also. I really, really do. All right, enough of that. We scorched enough earth there on that one. Now, I want to get into this. Let me get over to it here. You heard me talk about Syria, the gas attacks last week, and saying that it just didn't make any sense. Didn't make any sense whatsoever to me. And I said, I don't believe it. I don't believe that the Trump administration, our government, the military, anybody has any proof that Assad was behind any chemical attack in Syria. unless you give me concrete evidence, I'm not going to believe it. Now, having said that, this week, a couple reports have come out. People are starting to, the cracks in the narrative are starting to show, okay? And we have here, this is an article from zerohedge.com. And let me see here. This is, give a hat tip to Cold Core's blog. This is where the, Zero Hedge got it from. And it's an article by Tyler Durden, posted on the 17th, a couple days ago. Robert Fisk's bombshell first-hand account for the UN Independent runs contrary to nearly every claim circulating in major international press concerning what happened just over a week ago on April 7th in an embattled suburb outside of Damascus. Not only was the veteran British journalist found no evidence of a mass chemical attack, but he's encountered multiple local eyewitnesses who experienced the chaos of that night, but who say the gas attack never happened. Fisk is the first Western journalist to reach and report from the site of an alleged chemical weapons attack widely blamed on Assad's forces. Writing from Douma in eastern Ghouta, Fisk has interviewed a Syrian doctor who works at the hospital shown in one of the well-known videos, which purports to depict victims of a chemical attack. Importantly, the report published late in the day Monday is causing a stir among mainstream journalists who minutes after the Saudi-sponsored jihadist group Jaish al-Islam, Army of Islam, accused the Syrian army of gassing civilians, began uncritically promoting the Assad gassed his own people narrative as an already cemented and proven fact based on mere word of a notoriously brutal armed group who itself has admitted to using chemical weapons in the Syrian battlefield in prior years. Also notable is that no journalist or international observer was anywhere near Douma when the purported chemical attack took place. Controversy ensued immediately after Fisk's report, especially as he is among the most recognizable names in the past 4 decades of Middle East war reporting, having twice won the British Press Awards Journalist of the Year Prize and as 7 times winner of the British Press Award Foreign Correspondent of the Year. New York Times has referred to him as probably the most famous foreign correspondent in Britain, while the Guardian has called him one of the most famous journalists in the world. An Arabic speaker, Fisk became famous for being among the few reporters in history to conduct face-to-face interviews with Osama bin Laden, which he did on 3 occasions between 93 and 97. Fisk said he was able to walk around and investigate newly liberated Douma without Syrian government or Russian minders. In part, this is likely because he has reported from inside Syria, going back decades in war-torn 1982 Hama, for example, and he begins his account as follows, and he tells about his story, okay? Now, what I want to do here is I do have a, this is a One American News Network, this is a One American News Network video where they have a reporter that was actually inside and went everywhere Mr. Fisk went and found the same evidence. So there we got two a British reporter and American reporter throwing doubts completely on this whole narrative. Now, before I play this video, they're going to show a small part of this video. This video runs about 7 minutes. I'm going to play the whole thing. But there's a part of this video where they show a hole in the roof and they show this yellow cylindrical object. And I'll tell you after the video what it is. Just watch the video, and if you know what it is, leave a comment below in the video for me now. But I'll tell you, or what you thought it was going to be. So here is the video.
Conflicting reports continue to pour out of Syria as the international community demands answers. And One America News takes a look at how the truth may be different depending on where you are and who you're talking to.
The situation in Syria remains in flux, as a lack of access has resulted in uncertainty and conflicting reports as to what happened the night of the alleged chemical weapons attack in Douma.
We can't get to the site ourselves, but every day, evidence and witnesses come across this border wall with more horrific details.
Many media outlets have been unable or unwilling to enter the war-torn country of Syria, but that doesn't mean access has been non-existent, as One American News was able to get a reporter on the ground in Douma.
We're in Douma. We're walking around, we're talking to people. I understand there are accusations that some of the people that are being talked to are plants. They're people that are set up to say certain things in support of President Assad, and they're not real. So we're walking up to random people at this point, asking them questions and what they think about this situation.
Fox News was able to get as close as the Turkish-Syrian border, where buses full of the few remaining rebels in Syria have been sent to after the Assad regime took control of Douma.
Multiple sources have told us that rebels are no longer in that part of Douma. In fact, they have left. They were bussed out under a deal done by the Russians.
Reports from those fleeing Douma tell a story of the deliberate use of chemical weapons, launched by the Syrian regime against a civilian population.
One had broken the roof and was stuck. Everybody in that house and at least 2 other houses had died. The barrel was about 5 feet long, yellow and made of thick metal. Doctors said they only had room to treat those who had a chance of survival. They left the others to die.
Meanwhile, reports coming from the now regime-controlled city of Douma are telling a different story.
We've talked to 2 doctors, a general surgeon, several of the nursing staff, a number of the patients who were in the hospital that day. Not one person saw any sign of a chemical attack.
One America's foreign correspondent, Pearson Sharp, is on the ground in Syria, at that very hospital in Douma, where doctors are giving him a different account of that night.
No signs about chemical attack, because when chemical attacks, the eyes, as he said, would be closed like this and hurt. And skin, nothing. So no sign about chemical attacks. Something very important, because when others they were talking with him, I asked him if in that day any case died. He said no.
Attempts for a further investigation by the United Nations have been stalled. A UN security team came under small arms fire in Syria on Wednesday, while clearing the way for inspectors to visit the site of the suspected chemical attack, forcing them to return to Damascus.
The Syrian government says that was rebel fire, but we know that that is not true.
Going off their sources at the Turkish-Syrian border, Fox News also said the Syrian regime had found the burial site from the attack.
Now, we also know that the Syrian regime has actually found the graves of the victims from that attack. They have taken the bodies so they cannot be tested. And we also know that doctors who were treating those victims have been harassed severely. Their families have been threatened. They've been searched, some of them detained. So the Syrian government trying very hard not to let anyone in.
But Sharp was able to get in. And when he visited the location for himself, he was told a very different story than the one being told to Fox News by rebels at the border.
So we're here inside the hospital that was controlled by the terrorists, Jaish al-Islam, on the day that the alleged chemical attack was supposed to have happened. The story that they're giving us is that on that day, they were in there, it's a normal day, and suddenly a bunch of people rushed into the room shouting, chemical attack, and the doctors didn't know who they were, they didn't know where they were from, and the strangers came in and started spraying water, and so the other people who were in the room started spraying water as well. After that, they started filming it, and then they left.
Despite unsuccessful attempts by the UN to enter the city of Douma to make a determination on the attack, according to Fox News, it appears Sharp is not the only American to enter the city.
We do know from rebel commanders across the border in Syria that Americans have visited them. They have taken urine and blood samples from survivors who escaped. So even though the UN and the OPCW might not have evidence, the American government now does.
Some accounts even allege it was actually the rebels in the area who deployed chemical weapons in hopes of receiving international assistance. But those on the ground talking to One American News are outright denying any chemical attack at all.
He haven't seen, he haven't smelled, and he haven't anyone hurt.
No one hurt.
Chemical.
لا ما صار لنا شيء وهي كل الجيران هون.
All of them. They didn't smell. They haven't seen anything.
Okay.
And only 500 meters. All this area, they didn't smell anything.
And this is very close to where it happened.
Yes, all this.
The rebel sources became apparent when Fox News reported that the people they're talking to are urging for more airstrikes from the U.S.
But there's a gratitude towards the U.S. for those strikes, but they're desperately hoping that more may be carried out.
The narrative being put out differs depending on who's saying it and where the information is coming from. But with time, the truth will come out as to what happened in Syria on April 7th. But much like what Fox News did at the Turkish border, Sharp makes his own determination, based on what he's seen in Douma, Syria.
I'm back in Damascus now, but after spending a full day walking through Douma and looking for any signs of a chemical attack, we turned up completely empty-handed. We interviewed dozens of people, and no one had seen or heard anything to suggest that there was a chemical attack. We spoke with officers, with military police, with the military themselves. We spoke with nurses in the hospital where the video was filmed. We spoke with a doctor. We spoke with the general surgeon. We went to ground zero where the attack allegedly happened, and there wasn't a single shred of evidence that we found that there was a chemical attack. Again, this doesn't mean there wasn't one, but it means that when we looked for evidence that was said to have been there, nothing turned up. This presents a difficulty in the narrative that is given between the Western media outlets and what we're actually seeing here on the ground.
We can use your help. Call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to.
All right, folks. The one thing I want to show you right here is the map of Syria. It's kind of hard sometimes to get your head wrapped around. This is Syria. I know on the podcast you're not going to be able to see this, but you have Syria here. You have Lebanon and Israel to the west. You have Jordan to the south. You have Iraq to the east. You have Iran is over there to the east, and you have Turkey to the north. Now, Iran doesn't border. Let me see. It does share a border with Turkey, but it does not share a border with Syria. So Syria and Iraq share a border. Iraq and Iran share a border, but Syria doesn't. And it seems that a lot of these rebels that are fleeing are going on buses up to Turkey. And that's where some of the press is getting debriefing of these rebels. And Damascus is down here, just southeast, and more east and south of Beirut, Lebanon, and the outskirts and everything. So if I zoom in on the map itself, we might be able to see where Douma is, just to clarify things with folks. Let me get this up in here. Let me go in here tight a couple times. And if you look here where Damascus is, Douma is to the northeast of Damascus, okay? And it's out on the outskirts of Damascus. It's quite a long ways from Syria. There's a highway that goes up right up to, or I mean, it's quite a long ways from Turkey, I should say. But there's a highway that goes right up and crosses into Turkey if you just keep going north. Let me back out of this real quick. If you keep going north, this highway goes up to Aleppo, and then there's a road that goes up to Kils in Turkey, and that crosses over into there. I just wanted to show you that to you because some people, I knew basically where everything was at because of my studies in the Bible in the Middle East there. So I pretty much knew where all that was. But I just wanted to give you that flavor of that, where all that was. And now, you remember about halfway through that video, that guy said he looked up in the ceiling, there's a hole in the ceiling, and then there's a yellow cylinder about 5 foot long, right? That is impacted into the floor. And he said that was a chemical attack. That was a chemical missile. No, it wasn't. That was an acetylene bottle. At least how we mark them over here in the United States. That was an acetylene bottle. And acetylene bottle is one half of the gas bottles you need for an acetylene torch. You need oxygen, which is green, and most of the acetylene I've ever seen is yellow. Now, I could be wrong. It's been a while since I've seen them, but most of the acetylene bottles I ever used in the past were always yellow. And now, that could have exploded. You know, when one of the rebels touched off some explosion, saying it was a gas attack. That could be part of the reason for that. Okay, and that could have flew up in the air and come down through there. But folks, that was not a chemical missile. Chemical missiles are designed to explode and disperse their contents. And there's a couple other things in there too. Maybe not on that report, but other reports I've seen on mainstream media where people are smelling each other, saying, you know, that they could smell the chemical. And it was always reported that it was a sarin gas attack. Sarin's an odorless gas. You can't smell it. And if sarin was present and they're going around sniffing people, they would die too, depending on how much sarin they got. The whole thing is, in my opinion, the whole thing is a false flag by the rebels to try to keep the Americans in there against Assad. That's all it is. Now, I've heard rumors, and these are not confirmed. I'm just letting you know some of the conspiracies are going on out there, that Donald Trump knew that there wasn't a gas attack, but he wanted to show Russia how precise our missiles are and how they can't take any of our missiles down. That's something that was floated. I don't know any of the veracity of that statement. I'm just saying that's some of the ideas people are putting out there. And to me, it's kind of funny to hear some of these conspiracy theories. It really, really is. All right. So that's it for Syria. I mean, to me, it's becoming a joke. I think our foreign policy is a joke. I think we need to pull ourselves out of Syria, and I think we need to do it toot sweet. I don't think we need to wait any longer. I think, honestly, we need to pull back from the Middle East. We need to contain it. And I don't agree with some. I like Charlie Kirk. I really do. But I don't think he was ever in the military, and I don't think he understands what force projection is. He thinks, and a lot of conservatives think this way. I don't. That we need all these bases around the world, because then people are going to there's going to be mischief happen, and we're going to have to go back in there and do something about it. What's the first thing that happened with any of this? Anytime we've attacked anybody, when we went in to take out Saddam Hussein, what was the first thing we did? Air power. What's one other thing we have in abundance on the sea, and it's very lethal, and then we can project our power pretty far inland? Aircraft carriers. What is that area surrounded in? Mediterranean Ocean, Indian Ocean. Okay, so on each side. So we can power pretty far without having bases there. And to me, wasting that money there. I'm just saying, you know, a lot of people might disagree with me on that. I think I'm right. You know, that we're pretty far if we have to. And once we gain air dominance, it isn't that hard. Once we have the air, it's not that hard to land the Marines and then the Army behind them and mop up. You know, and it may be harder in some instances than others, but, you know, a lot of people don't think about this when it comes to force projection, at least for now. I have two more stories here I want to get to. And one is the law that James Damore, now he was the tech engineer that was the coding engineer that was fired from Google because of his how dare he speak the truth when it comes to diversity in the sciences, in the STEM, you know, areas of business and college and stuff like this. This is by Alam Bakhari. posted yesterday, and this is on Breitbart. Alan Altman, a senior software engineer at Google, pressured the company to sabotage President Trump's Android phone, according to new evidence released via James Damore's class action lawsuit. Calling on the tech giant to use the full economic force of Google for good, Altman also suggested deleting the Gmail accounts of Trump administration and his aides for abuse. Altman, who is still employed by the tech giant, also called on Google to blacklist alt-right sites on the Google ad network. She falsely included Breitbart News in this category, an assertion refuted by Harvard and MIT, and take down all alt-right videos from YouTube. She also called on the tech giant to remove neo-Nazi sites such as the Daily Stormer from the Google search index. Okay, and there's some of it goes on down there and shows some of the stuff that she was talking about there. Altman has been employed at Google for 7 years, and according to inside sources, is one of the most radical leftists at the company. She was named one of the political discrimination at Google by a whistleblower we interviewed last August. As we have reported, she has previously called on the company to discipline, terminate any employee who agreed with James Damore's viewpoint diversity manifesto, which argued that there was an atmosphere of political intolerance at Google. And it keeps coming out day after day, folks. Google, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, it's coming out day after day after day. It's like someone just opened up the dam and just let the water flow, right? Google seemed to follow at least one of Altman's suggestions, effectively kicking the Daily Stormer off the internet in August 2017, a move that was condemned by the left-leaning Electronic Frontier Foundation. While Google did not follow Altman's suggestion to remove Breitbart News from its ad network, its employees have begun advertising or advising clients to steer clear of Breitbart News, as we exclusively reported in February. More evidence that Google's ad departments are trying to undermine the revenue of conservative sites has just been released via the Damore lawsuit. According to the lawsuit, when Google's large customer sales team learned that the Canadian conservative news site, the Rebel Media, had been targeted by far-left group Sleeping Giants, they used this as an excuse to advise clients to remove ad placements from conservative websites. In a template email, the Google client's Marshall Self, director of agency, recommended that clients take advantage of Google's wide number of controls, including placement exclusions and filters for political ads from specific sites, apps, YouTube channels, and videos. There's a copy of this you go over to the link, which all my links are always over at the danclementsshow.com. I put them over there right after the show. There's a link below the video that'll take you right over there, and that's my the show's web page. And I do a podcast and then just a regular article with the links and everything on it. This is the latest information that has been released as part of the Damore lawsuit. Yesterday, we reported that Google cautions many of its managers against rewarding behavior to values of white male dominant culture, including meritocracy, individual achievement, and avoiding conflict. Now, let me stop the reading there. Google will not last long if it keeps defying an Austrian economic principle of meritocracy. And what's meritocracy? It is hiring people on the merits, advancing people on the merits of their work ethic, of how they get along with other folks, and no political correctness or anything. Is just on the merits. Are they doing a good job or are they not? Are they doing what's asked of them or are they not? And as a company, you would think as a company that Google would want to use meritocracy or people's merit to advance them and to hire them, because that's exactly what I'm going to do when I get the chance to hire folks to help me on the show here. It's going to be based on merits. It's going to be based on their qualifications. I don't care if they're a man or woman. I don't care what their skin color is. Now, as far as their religious background, because this is a Christian political show, I am going to be cognizant of, because I don't want profane individuals, and I want folks that have an open mind about things, but at the same time have Christian characteristics. Okay? To me, that's just Google, Twitter, Facebook, they're going to go the way of the dodo bird if they keep up with this stupid political correctness. The only reason why they haven't gone by the way of the dodo bird is because the vast amount of money that they have, but we've seen, and Facebook is bleeding money. YouTube, everybody says YouTube does not make a profit for Google. And there's also competitors that are coming up that I spread my stuff to also. Gab, Minds, BitChute, DTube by Steemit. I'm not apologizing for anything. I use DuckDuckGo for my search engine. Google doesn't get any of my stuff off of that at all. I had to use a map off of Google Maps because I like Google Maps. That's it. I don't use a search engine. A lot of people are starting to get away from that. I use Brave browser that actually it blocks ads, and I don't want to get into it right now. I do want to do a separate video on Brave browser that I just found out some more information on, but it's a cryptocurrency browser where the advertisers have to pay to get in front of you, and you can still block them. It's like I said, I want to do a separate video, and I'll let you know when that's out. I just read an article about it and got into the backside of a Brave browser, but I do use Brave browser for all my research. The only thing I use for the show is Firefox because of the reading pane. Once Brave browser, they keep saying they're going to get that done. Once they do a reading pane over at Brave browser, I probably will quit using Firefox just for the anonymity. Now, there's 3 new plaintiffs have joined Demore's lawsuit against Google, which alleges that the company discriminates Asian, male, and conservative individuals. Alan Bakari is a senior technology correspondent at Breitbart News. To me, this is fascinating, folks. I mean, this is really, really fascinating to me. And I've been trying to follow this lawsuit for quite a while because, again, they're going to be in a lot of hot water. They really are. And I think this lawsuit is going to bring a lot more out than Google really wanted to let out. And I believe this is the beginning of the end for some of these tech giants. I believe because of privacy issues with people finding out about the administrations of the Obama administration or the Bush administration previously, using the NSA agencies to spy on American individuals that are sick of that. People are starting to finding out because of these tech giants like Facebook. All these people joined Facebook to create these communities of friends that they share things with. Facebook started seeing a trend here, and this is something that drives liberals nuts. Liberals and progressives may get to a technology before conservatives do and try to exploit it. But make no mistake about it, once conservatives find out about technologies that they can use, they use them to good effect, that it threatens progressive monopolies on the technologies. And then they go nuts. Like I said, when I used to be on Blog Talk Radio, it was at one point it was 3 or 4 to 1 conservative political talk shows on Blog Talk podcasts on Blog Talk Radio over liberal ones. And one of the comments I got most frequently was that people would go over and try to listen to the podcast on the liberal side, but they said they couldn't sit through all the profanity that was coming out. I do get that comment from friends of mine that go to my channel, and then on the side there's recommended videos. Now, they're not all my videos that are recommended, and they'll see something, they'll go over and start watching it, and they get out of it because they don't like the profanity. And so there's a whole lot of things that are working out there against progressives. There's, like I said, I try not to watch it. Sometimes I do because I'm trying to, source my my news items and what I want to talk to you about. And sometimes I have to put up with that, which I don't think is right. I mean, these, some of these folks that are, I'll be 56 on Monday. And there's folks in the millennial generation behind me that think that it's okay just to blurt out vulgarities all day long and think, well, we just bleep them out and we're okay with the FCC or whatever. We're children friendly because we're bleeping them out, but you know exactly what they said. Bleeping them out doesn't do anything. Just don't use the words. I get through a whole broadcast, hour and a half. Sometimes I get through almost all my videos, if not every one of my videos. I'll say every one of my videos without swearing, without using vulgarities. It works very well. It really, really does. And so, but getting back to the lawsuit here, like I said, the government shouldn't step in on Facebook. They shouldn't step in on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, none of those. Competition, and this is what's happening. The internet has been based on free market capitalism. No matter what my friends over at the Humanist Report say, it's based on free market capitalism. And that drives them nuts. Well, especially when I talk about free market capitalism, that drives them nuts. But that's what it's based on. What happened here, not that they had a monopoly on it. Now, my son would say, well, technically it is a monopoly. No, monopoly is 100%. If they do not have 100% of the market share, just like back in the day when Firefox started up, I've been using Firefox for I don't know how many years now, but it was back when Netscape and Internet Explorer, Microsoft, that's when they were having the big battles about the browsers. And then Mozilla, who was behind Netscape, dropped all that, went over to Firefox. They've had their problems over the year, but they have a pretty good browser now. And it used to be every time we get an update with Firefox, it would be a resource hog because they'd forget to do something. And then they'd have to put out a new update to update that update. They've gotten a lot better about that now. I mean, Firefox is a very good browser. I'm not knocking Firefox. But Internet Explorer had overwhelmingly the vast majority of search engines. Okay, and I should say, and and they had Google was in that mix there. You started having other browsers for a long time until I started doing the show. I was using Linux as an operating system because I just didn't like the expense of Microsoft. And trust me, when I expand this show, one of the things I'm definitely going to look into is I want an electronics person or networking person or somebody out there that knows what they're doing with Linux that can set my computers up to do exactly what I'm doing now with Linux. With the OBS, I can use OBS on Linux. I just don't know how to do everything on there. And I want to get away from these commercial things here. I don't want to have to, right now with Microsoft, you have to have a virus suite. And I have an antivirus suite, and I also have through that antivirus suite, it's AVG, they're not paying me to say this, I have a virtual private network, a tunnel as it were, that blocks my, finding me on the internet, because I care about my privacy that much. And this is what Google and the rest of the big three, I should say. Google has YouTube, Google, Facebook, and Twitter. They force people to rethink about their own privacy. They force people well, we don't like what Facebook is doing with our ads. Now, Facebook is making $40 billion a year off the fact that we, the people who use Facebook, are using Facebook. But we, the people using Facebook, don't see a dime of that. And without us, they wouldn't make any money. And this is why they're bleeding money, because tens of millions of users have already left Facebook. I'm on the verge of leaving Facebook. And like I said, I'm on Gab.AI, I'm on Minds, I'm on BitChute. I'm also starting to upload videos to it's DTube. And protect my brand, the Dan Clements Show. I got to protect my product. Because Google isn't going to do it, YouTube isn't going to do it, Twitter's not going to do it. And Facebook isn't going to. Danny Boy has to do it. And if you have a presence on the web like a YouTube channel or Twitter or something like that, and you have a brand, you need to start thinking about protecting that also. You really, really do. All right, last thing. I want to sort of end the show on a higher note today. Irrational Christophobes or Christophobes. I love how these phobias come out here, right? Attack Chick-fil-A. News report by Bill Donahue posted the 18th, a couple days ago. It is the fastest growing phobia in the nation, Christophobia. To be sure, the fear of Christians is not overcoming America, but it has overcome a large swath of non-believers or those who profess no religious belief. Within this segment of the population, there are the indifferent at one end and the haters at the other end. If there is any doubt that the haters are growing, consider the overheated reaction by the New Yorker to a company that sells chicken sandwiches. Journalist Dan Pippenbring accuses Chick-fil-A of carpet bombing. What did it do to merit such an accusation? It opened its 4th store in the Big Apple. Why the ballistics? The company is owned by practicing Christians. For instance, they believe marriage should be between a man and a woman. That's about it. What few acknowledge is that Chick-fil-A practices what it preaches in ways that have nothing to do with politics. Before Christmas 2017, thousands were stranded in Atlanta on a Sunday evening because of a massive power outage. Chick-fil-A, which is closing, quickly reopened to feed travelers after the gay club in Orlando, Pulse, the Pulse nightclub. The gay-hating franchise opened on a Sunday to feed those waiting in line to give blood, and on a regular basis it donates to homeless. But none of this matters to the Bill de Blasio's of the world. Indeed, the New York City mayor called for a boycott of Chick-fil-A when it opened in New York in 2016. Ironically, the Christian company that he hates winds up feeding the increasing numbers of homeless that his policies hate. Or his policies create, excuse me. What is driving the hatred of Chick-fil-A is the fear that its traditional moral values may prove inspiring. Yeah. The left has only one God, and that's power. It's government. And government should put God. That is what defines it. To the extent that Chick-fil-A inspires people to adopt its values, it is a threat to radical secularists. Moreover, survey data showing that a very large portion of the nuns, or N-O-N-E-S's, the nones, those who answer none when asked about their religious affiliation are on the left. They see Christian activists as a threat. Jews are too secular to begin with, and Muslims are too small to matter, so they focus on Christians. Last year, a survey from Baylor University found that 31% of the nuns, N-O-N-E-S, identified Christians as a danger to our safety. Less than half that number said the same about Muslims. There's been no rash of Christians assaulting the nuns or anyone else, so the fear is not based in reality. But it is a perfect example of Christophobia, which is spreading like a disease among the large segments of secularists. What the is controversy or conversion therapy. I laughed when I first read this. This is not about converting them to Christianity, although that would become. It's about getting them to stop with their irrational fear of Christians. What makes their fear so patently irrational is the fact that Christians, evidenced by Chick-fil-A, are more likely to help than they are to hurt them. Boy, howdy. Boy, howdy. Folks, here is a restaurant that practice what it preaches, Christianity. Help those that are in need of help. They have, I've read stories about how they've taken some homeless people, given them jobs at Chick-fil-A. And some of those, and I can't remember where it was at, but the person worked their way up to a store manager. Here was a homeless person that didn't have any prospects. A Christian-owned business like Chick-fil-A reached out and helped this individual. Atlanta, the feeding. Pulse nightclub massacre, feeding those in the blood drive. Opening up for disasters like that to help out when they can. That's Christian-like. And that's what secular humanists hate. Because they think the government should be the only one helping these people. They think the government should be the only ones feeding the poor or the homeless that the government created in the first place. And so if you want a real phobia that is irrational, phobia is a true phobia. Islamophobia is fake. Homophobia is fake. They're just words that they put up there. I don't have irrational fear that if I get near a homosexual, that I'm going to become a homosexual or that they're going to destroy my life. I won't allow that. The same with Islam. I won't allow it. We were talking about, I was in a thread yesterday on Twitter talking about about hate. And I said, are there people I hate? Yeah. Do I have them in my life? No, not anymore. If you've done something to me that's so grievous that you will not forgive me of, and I have no time for you. I really don't. Life's too short to spend time hating somebody. I had a business partner back in the 90s that was trying to start up. I had an inheritance, not a big one, but I had a small inheritance. I was a good plumber, still am a decent plumber. And I was starting up my own contracting business, and we were starting to do well. But my business partner got greedy, took all the money out of the company and spent it on other stuff. We didn't have the capital to keep renting equipment or buying supplies, to keep things going, and he put us out of business. And I never really hated him. I'm still a little miffed at him, but I never really hated him. And I since have forgiven him, and I'm only miffed when I think about it, where we would be today if he hadn't done that. And so I'm a little miffed about that, but, anymore I just don't even think about it. At one time, I might have wanted to walk up to him and punch him in the mouth. I wouldn't do that now. Like I said, I just don't have time for it. Hate consumes you to the point to where nothing else matters. And these people that hate Chick-fil-A because they're being nice and they're doing unto others as they would have others do unto them, the golden rule, these secular humanists, these nuns, N-O-N-E-S, these nuns, hate them for that. I mean, get a grip, people. It amazes me what'll upset some people and what they'll let themselves get upset about. Of humanists, I want to debate them and I want to try to persuade them to leave that type of ideology, but I do have fun debating them. I do, I have to know their silliness sometimes because of the way they think, especially progressives who are secular humanists. Most progressives are. And they think the government is the end-all to be-all. Only the government can do certain things. And when you put forth the idea that there's a lot of things the government does that the private sector could do better and cheaper, the first one that comes to mind is roads. Well, without the government, we wouldn't have roads. And I'm like, wait a minute. The government doesn't build the roads. The government collects the tax, the excise tax off the gasoline. And in a perfect world, this is what would happen. They collect the excise tax off the gasoline that we buy, and they should spend it on the roads and bridges that the cars actually drive over. No other money should be spent on mass transportation, nothing else, because it's supposed to be an excise tax for the roads. Who builds those roads? Well, private companies do. They bid through these contracts through the government, and they build these roads. Well, if they're the ones that build them, now they build them, turn them back over to the government, then the government tries to maintain them, and they just can't. They just don't have the money. If they just cut the middleman out, get the government out of the way, and let these corporations set up the building and maintaining of the roads, and any of the fuel taxes are collected from the excise tax goes directly to them, we wouldn't have an infrastructure problem as far as roads are concerned in this country. If all they're collected off of airplanes, the fuel they buy and whatever, we got the government out, the middleman, the government out of the way, there would be millions of more dollars for upkeep on airports, building new airports, improving safety, the whole 9 yards. But they don't think that way. Secular humans think that way. They think the government should do everything. And when I start saying that about the roads, all I get is spitting and sputtering on the other end, because I just blew their argument out of the water, and they have nothing. They have an argument for that. The government does not build the roads. The government collects the tax, takes their VIG, their cut of it, and then block grants it back, especially the federal highway tax, which that just blows my mind, because the states take care of those highways, the interstate that comes through their states. But they block grant it back to the state. Okay? And it's like, why did it have to go through the federal government to begin with? Why don't we just let the states tax those roads or tax the gas? And then some of the other bigger population, as other states do, maybe get together because these things need to happen. Let the states figure it out between themselves instead of the federal government getting in there like a mobster and getting their VIG, getting their cut of the profits. It makes no sense to me. This is what happens when you have a company like Chick-fil-A comes in. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that are mad that Chick-fil-A is not open on Sundays. I've had friends of mine in the past, Christians. We moved away. They're still Christians as far as I know. They don't go out to eat on Sundays. They don't. They almost act like it's the old the blue chip laws, where if you didn't sell food, you weren't open on Sundays. But they didn't even go grocery shopping on Sundays. They made sure they got everything they needed during the week, and Sunday was for family. Want to contribute to some other person losing out on being with their family on Sunday. They didn't want to contribute to that. You know what? And that's fine for them if they want to do that. And to the extent my wife can, we do the same thing. You know, I'm not saying we never go out eating on Sunday, but for the most part, we eat at home. One, it's cheaper. Two, the food's better. But there's every now and then we just don't want to fix a meal for Sunday. And we'll get something, we'll stop and get something to eat, or we'll get something to take home with us. But I don't condemn people who act that way. There was a restaurant that was prosperous for years and years and years, and when they finally retired and sold it, the people that had it didn't have it for 2 years because they left the business model that the restaurant had always been proud of. They were never open on Sundays. A local restaurant here, never open on Sundays, and they did a fantastic business the other 6 days of the week. But I've had friends who they go ballistic on Sundays. Who says they have to be? And Chick-fil-A is a very profitable company. It really is. I'm just saying there's something to it. There's something to it. If you can't make your profit in the other 6 days of the week, that seventh day, I think you're doing something wrong if you have to rely on Sunday to make up for your profits for the week. But like I said, to me, it's an irrational fear of Chick-fil-A and the Christian values that they bring. It's funny to me. It's really funny to me how these folks react and how these folks actually, they go off the deep end. Because how dare you give your employees a day off during the week to go worship? That's not right. You got to be open. How dare you feed the homeless? How dare you feed people who got stranded in Atlanta because of a power outage and couldn't fly out and they didn't have anywhere to get food? How dare you do that to your fellow American? How dare you feed the people who are giving blood after the Pulse nightclub massacre in Orlando. You're supposed to hate gay people. You're Christians. You hate gay people. No, we don't hate gay people. We don't hate Islam. We don't hate Muslims. We just think they're wrong. And we sit down and study with them. That's it. We don't force anybody. Christianity is not Islam. I can't force you to become a Christian, and God doesn't force you to become. Gives you free will. You make the choices you want, and a lot of people do that. But the secular humanist cannot stand it when a corporation practices Christian principles, prospers, and is very beloved by the American people. I love Chick-fil-A. One of the best chicken sandwiches in the industry, and their waffle fries are some of the best I've ever had. I love them things. The only time we eat Chick-fil-A is when we take my daughter out to State College to get her, and there's a Chick-fil-A out there. We've often said, man, we'd love to have a Chick-fil-A around Selinsgrove, Sunbury area. It would do fantastic business around here because we like it. Because we like it. And the last thing I want to say about this, the biggest reason why secular humanists hate Chick-fil-A is because they do live their Christian principles. A marriage is between a man and a woman. It's funny about that real quick. People who are against Christianity say, well, Christ never mentioned anything about homosexual marriage. He absolutely did. Because in 2 different instances in the Gospels, he talks about what a marriage is. It's between a man and a woman. And by between a man and a woman, it excludes everything else. So yes, he did. I told that to a person, I think they fell off Twitter. They really did. And 2, they're against abortion. The owner, the CEO of Chick-fil-A does not like abortion. And I don't like it either. And I don't like to see our federal tax dollars that they take out of our paychecks and give millions of dollars to Planned Parenthood. That's wrong. That's totally wrong. And I don't think the government should be involved in that. I think Roe v. Wade was erroneous. I think it was a bad court decision because it didn't protect fundamental rights and freedoms of the unborn. It just didn't. And so, again, it does. It amazes me. It amazes me how these secular humanists go way off the deep end irrationally. Irrationally when it comes to Christianity and when it comes to Christians practicing their faith. Folks, this has been the host Dan Clements, your constitutional warrior. Remember, if you aim at nothing, you hit it every time. Have a great rest of the day, and God bless, folks. If you're over on my YouTube channel, if you're watching this, please subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and hit the notification button. And if you hit the notification button, they're going to ask you a couple different questions. If you want to see all my videos are coming out, you have to hit the all button in there. If you give me a thumbs up or thumbs down, I'm not begging you for a thumbs up for everything, but if you give me a thumbs up or thumbs down, please leave your comments there, and please share the video with your friends. And if you can, I am begging for your support. I have a Patreon account set up, and I also have a PayPal account set up. It's been the Dan Clements Show. I'm your host, Dan Clements, your constitutional warrior. Remember, on Sunday, attend the church of God's choice, not your choice. Have a great rest of the day and a blessed weekend, folks, and we'll see you on the next video.